What's up, guys? Debo here. Welcome back to another Lost Ark video. Last week we went over my initial thoughts and review of the game. Today we're going to be going over one of the major aspects of any action RPG or MMORPG. Of course, the gearing system and how we acquire gear and progress our characters to make them stronger. Now, if you take a look on your screen right now, I want to go ahead and include that in the description of the YouTube video so you can look at it as you go along. I'm going to be bringing this down so you guys can see the gameplay behind everything. But this is basically my structured picture about how currently the gear progression system is working inside the game, and how we go about, increasing our characters' levels in the different branch paths to make our characters as powerful as they can be. All right. So, at the beginning of the game, you're going to of course, go through the tutorial. It's levels 1 through 10. You can skip that. I highly advise not to do that if it's your first time playing Lost Ark, so you can understand, some of the basic mechanics of the game. And then after that, it's going to progress you into the run, I call it, from level 11 all the way up to level 50. This involves doing quests and dungeons. They have a good, back and forth kind of play between you doing your main quest, which progresses the story content, of course, side quests, which gives you, other options to open up other certain quest lines and chains, and of course the dungeons. You also got some individual instanced events, where it's basically you just go through like a cinematic, like little cutscene, and you interact with what's going on, and it's pretty straightforward. If you do all the quests and do all the side quests, all the main quests and all the side quests, you actually end up being about level 40 when you first leave the initial continent. When you leave the first initial continent, at that point, you're awarded a ship in which you can traverse the sea and go to many different locations. So, once you get out to the open sea and you start progressing and collecting the arcs, as they say, there's only currently possible to get 4 out of 7 arcs. So you do your major story quest. You get to a point where they're saying, okay, we're going to set you off into the world so you can experience all the other continents. The game is pretty straightforward. You're going to have to collect a total of 4 out of 7 arcs. There's only 4 of them in the game, and I'm assuming the other 3 will come later. So you take your ship, and you cruise across many, many different islands, sticking to the main story quest, doing a couple side quests and what have you not, and just doing whatever you need to do to collect the arcs, which is pretty much go to a continent, do all the quests there, you'll pretty much get the arc, and you'll move on to the next area. Pretty straightforward, really easy stuff. And to a certain extent, you get towards the end on the last continent, if you've been doing all the quests and everything that you're supposed to, you actually end up approaching your level 50 way before you finish the last set in the game dungeons and what have you not. Now, if you notice throughout the game as you're leveling up, or you guys might not know, but as you level up, the item levels have a huge impact on what content you can do and how you can progress your character up. And once you get to the final set regular dungeons, that can be ran as regular or hard dungeon, they have an item level cap of 305. And what do I mean by that is that when you get to the end of the main story arc, that's when the game tries to start setting you up so you can get the initial item level score of 250. Alright, so as you approach the in-game content, the first thing you actually face with is the hard mode dungeons, which have an item level cap of 305. That means the items will drop anywhere between 280 to 305. If you get a 305, you're extremely lucky. More often than not, usually if you end up getting an item drop and you look at it and it's item level 285 or higher, that's perfectly fine. If you can get anything like 295, whatever, that's fantastic, because that will help with your overall average. There's only a couple of those towards the end game. I'll be fair. There's a good amount of them that do drop, item level, I like to say 285 or higher. But, if a dungeon's cap is 285 for the highest item level drop you can get, I mean, the chances of you getting a perfect rolled item level 285 when the ranges are so vast, it's probably not going to happen. So, out of these 305 item level dungeons, you could probably get 285 to 295 fairly easy. Anything beyond 295, count yourself pretty lucky. And that's just a nice initial way to kind of get yourself situated. You can actually probably just run all those and combine that with some turn-ins and stuff like that to get yourself to the item level 285. So you can start at the Chaos Dungeons level of level of 285. Chaos Dungeons let you get in at 250. The 250 gear range for the Chaos Dungeons gives you gear drops that progress you up into the 285 item level average. So the first initial part is pretty nice because you have the hard mode dungeons. You can run them as many times as you want until you get the gear that you want, and that helps you get situated with your initial gear sets in the game. After the hard mode dungeons, you have two different sets that allow you to go in different directions. If you'd like to make a crafting set, which allows you to go around and you're harvesting, like, you know, the wood, the stone, they have a certain prerequisite requirements. You go out there, you harvest all the items, you do the certain quests, and then you can go to a NPC that will actually craft you a set of harvesting gear. Or you can actually do something in the same situation, but it's called the Harmony set, where you sail across all the different islands on your ship, completing certain quests. And once you get a certain amount of things called the Heart of the Islands, they reward you with the gear set. And the cool things about this is that it provides you an alternative way to gear up your character, in case you don't like the typical just grind dungeons until you get all the item level drops that you want. If you find yourself as a person that's like a hunter-gatherer, gather up a lot of materials from the world, and you want to take those items and go to the crafter and make your gear set, that's perfectly fine, because all these gear sets can be used in dungeons. It's not like crafting a set that makes you harvest faster. You're basically harvesting from the environment. You get the items that you need, you craft the gear set, and that gear set can be used in raids or whatever, because that's the one cool thing I like about this game. So there's different approaches to gearing up your character for what you want to do. So you got the Harmony Sailing set here, you have the Harvesting set. They're both item level 380, and they both can be upgraded all the way up, I do believe, to, they start at 280, and they're upgraded all the way to the item level cap that they have, which is 380. I don't think most people will be doing that, but that's for another time in video. But if you want to progress your character that way, that is possible. So we got the hard mode dungeon. 305 gets you into entry level dungeons. You got the Harmony Sailing set, which you can go around the islands and different islands in Lost Ark and focus on your ship and progressing it that way, so you can get a nice 280 set and gear that up to upgraded to 380 if you'd like. You have another way you can go, which you basically crafting and harvesting everything to build your set at 280 and then upgrade that all the way up to 380. And of course, the major scaling item level dungeon system is called the Chaos Dungeon system. You're allowed to enter 3 times a day. You're allowed to get 3 rewards, and then the rewards scale based upon your item level. So if you're looking at the picture, 250 is the minimum entry level for the Chaos Dungeon. Most people will be a lot higher than that. And then pretty much the 250 gear that drops from the dungeon that you run 3 times a day will scale you up to 285. After you hit 285, then you'll be able to do the next tier of the Chaos Dungeon, and the 285 gear will scale to 305. The 305 gear scales all the way up to 325. The 325 scales to 345. And what I mean by scaling is that every time you run the 3 Chaos Dungeon runs, you open up the box, the chest, it gives you random pieces of loot. If your average item level, like for instance, if I have, for the most part, like if, let's say item level average 285, the gear will start dropping anywhere between 285 all the way up to about 305. So, you know, I'll get a couple pieces every day. My item level will slowly increase. And as it slowly increases, it raises my gear score, and to the point in which it's going to eventually get me to the point where my average item level ends up being the next gear check or the next level of the Chaos Dungeon. So it ends up at 345 for the first tier. And then after you finish that, you progress onwards to the second tier of the Chaos Dungeons, where the gear score starts at 365 item level average, and then that 365 dungeon progresses to 385 to 405, then to 425, and then eventually 445 ending. The last gear progression system is the raid gear system. There's multiple raids. There's different tiers of raiding. There's 4 bosses per tier. In order to get to the next tier, you not only have to kill each boss at least 1 time, there is a strict item level gear score before you can progress onwards. So you start off with the first raid boss, you kill it. The first initial raid boss items that it drops are used to craft the raid gear set. After you craft the raid gear set, the second, third, and the 4th bosses are used to upgrade that tier set, which, if you do everything in that order, will progress you to the next level of the raid content. You will not only have the item level requirement, you also will, for the most part, you'll have the item level requirement, and you would have met all the requirements of killing each raid boss at least once to progress onto the next tier system. They have a second tier system with another set of raid bosses, 1 through 4, just like before. And then, of course, also, I do believe 3, and I do believe they're working on another one like that. You're allowed to do the raid as many times as you want to get about 2 drops from the raid boss. They also drop a spear, in which if you open it up, it gives you additional raid items, gear drops that they might drop, and the craftables, but you can only get that 3 times a day. So if somebody likes to raid exclusively, they can do that. They can do a combination of just raiding and doing the chaos dungeons in case they don't want to do the other ways. But just like I said, just another way you can just start gearing your character for in-game content. So currently right now in the game, with how the meta is kind of progressing, a lot of the Korean players are actually going for the Harmony set, which starts at 280. They upgrade 2 to 3 pieces at max, never the weapon. They do their daily chaos dungeons, and they do their raids. And between those 3 different elements, people are progressing up through the gear system pretty straightforward. I like how they have all the gear, even going up to item level 445 available. They're not hiding it behind content. It's just basically however you progress your character. If you can get the same people to, get their item levels up and also kill the bosses, you're allowed to keep progressing onward and onwards until you hit all the in-game content. It's kind of reminiscent of how it was back in the Burning Crusade, how every single raid, pretty much a lot of the raids, except I think exclusion of like Black Temple or maybe another one, were in the game ready to go, but no one could really do them because you had to progress everybody up. You had to do the attunements, you had to get the gear to be able to beat the raid and what have you not. So like I said, I've really been enjoying it. If you're a person that wants to focus and just grind out your gear and get every single piece of raid piece and really push your character, you can do that. You could be the kind of guy that just comes in every day and just does your daily chaos dungeons and daily raids and progress your character that way. You can go out, you can explore and get your gear sets and just, progress your gear that way. So, as long as they keep the gear system the way it is and the progression system the way it is, I think they did a fantastic job in which will be able to fit many different peoples on different levels, depending on their need or depending on their schedule, depending on how they want to do things, so they can progress their character through the game. So, the next week, I'm probably going to go over some other different stuff. I'm going to probably look a little bit more into rating and display the rating tier system because I thought that was pretty cool. And maybe go over a little bit of the metagame for, how people are progressing quickly to get those max level gear scores before Smilegate releases more content. Outside of that, man, I appreciate you guys checking out this video and taking time out your day. If you guys want to support the stream, you guys can always look at the bottom right corner of the video right there. You can follow me on Facebook, DeboSC2, YouTube.com. It's DeboSC2. Twitter is DeboSC2. Holler at me. Give me some suggestions. Let me know what's going on. You can always watch me live on twitch.tv/SPSDebo. And, stop on by, man. I'm always happy to see people. Make sure you click that bell notification icon so you guys know next time I post a video online. And outside of that, I'm going to leave you with the rest of this dungeon, and I hope you guys have a good night.